to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak, local VFW 653. First Selectman Deanna Carlson, Commander Mike McGlynn, Reverend Burgess, fellow citizens of New Canaan. I'm MyLinh Brewster Shattan, and I want to talk with you about the purpose of Memorial Day and why we're here. I have 3 stories that I think are going to do that. So I'm going to start with the one I know best, my own. As Deanna said, this is the 16th year my family's been in New Canaan. It's the first time I've made it to the ceremony, because Memorial Day is my wedding anniversary. This seems a somber time for a soldier to take matrimonial vows. But my husband and I decided on this weekend, because our family and friends stationed around the globe would be able to attend the wedding by taking military pass. I was born in Washington, D.C., but my story begins in the 1970s as a Saigon kid. That was a free city. It was the capital city of South Vietnam. Next year, 2025, will be 50 years since the end of the U.S. mission. My father escaped with U.S. Ambassador Graham Martin on April 30th, 1975, on that last helicopter off the embassy roof. By doing that, they were able to help as many of our Vietnamese allies escape as possible. He had sent me and my family home shortly before then, that fatal and historic day. You see, my father, Donald Charles Brewster, is buried right here in New Canaan at Lakeview Cemetery. He's from Boston. He was in the U.S. Foreign Service, and he's buried along an old horse path by the back gate. My mother was born in Hue, the ancient imperial city of central Vietnam. Now, her father was a mandarin, just a civil magistrate, and he forbid her from marrying this American, this man who would become my father. Luckily for me, she did not always do what she was told. She worked for the U.S. Embassy. She lives in New Canaan, and she is here with us today. Hung Bu, or Linda Brewster. Say hi, Mom. Linda's family served in the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. Her closest brother, my beloved uncle, was an infantry and engineering company commander. He did not evacuate. He remained with his company. He was imprisoned in a re-education camp for 3 years, and he would die attempting to escape communist rule. I am grateful to the United States for its alliance with the former Republic of Vietnam, because I am lucky to be one of 2.3 million Americans of Vietnamese descent who reside today in this land of the free. 12 years after the fall of Saigon, I reported to West Point for cadet basic training. I would serve in the U.S. Army at the end of the Cold War in a reunified Germany. The Berlin Wall had just come down, which is why I'm here today as a U.S. Army veteran. Now, for my second story, I asked you to travel back in time to 1959 to 1960. The town population is roughly half of what it is, 12 to 13,000. President Dwight D. Eisenhower is in charge. He was a former general, Supreme Allied Commander of Europe. The space race is on. It's the Cold War. Fidel Castro just steps up in Cuba. And Hawaii becomes the 50th state in the Union. The building where Saks currently is located, that's the town high school. And I want to talk to you about 7 New Canaanites. Dave Austin, Creighton Conner, and Rick Bickford are all at New Canaan High School. Dave Austin of Valley Road heads down to rehearsal for the senior play as Dr. Rizzio in Don Quixote. Sancho Panza doesn't like the doctor very much because he keeps him from doing his favorite thing, eating. Dave loves to ham it up in the radio club. He's an Eagle Scout. He's the class vice president. Dave receives a superlative for most contributions to the school. He will graduate from Colgate. He will join the U.S. Air Force. Creighton Conner of Oak Street near the corner of South is his classmate. He heads out to soccer practice. The team ties the unbeaten Staples High School, and they have their first successful year. Folks know Creighton because he's a four-sport athlete. They call him the Duke. They know him because he hit a home run out of Beat Park. Now, some of you may know Pop Connor Field on South Avenue. That's named for his grandfather. Rick Bickford, short for Richard, is a sophomore. He heads down to Coach Sikorsky's football practice. He's the rising quarterback. New Canaan pulls off an upset over the Norwalk Clamtowners 48-14. Ritt will become president of the National Honor Society. He earns a full scholarship to Wesleyan, and then he receives an appointment to West Point. Now look, 1960, there's 141 seniors at the high school. There's 156 sophomores. These three, they knew of each other, perhaps as friends. William Brewster Nickerson is a senior at Deerfield Academy at the same time. He's a St. Mark's boy. He plans to enter the ministry. The rector, Grant Merrill, describes him as one of our best. He graduates from Dartmouth, he joins the Navy. He is number 1 in his flight class. That next year, David Moy Burke, Jr. of Frogtown Road, at Hart's High School, and he attends Canterbury in New Milford. He has 4 sisters. He's lived in Canaan all of his life. He attends Providence College. After his second year, he enlists in the U.S. Army. Brings me to my last student, Howard Bruce Smith of Canoe Hill Road. Bruce will attend New Canaan High School. He'll leave after his sophomore year and enlist in the Army. He will earn his jump wings and become part of the elite 173rd Airborne Brigade, the Sky Soldiers. Now that ends the students. Brings me to Fred Andrew Lynn. 10 years older than these 6 students. He's from Shaker Road. Fred moved to New Canaan as a teenager, worked at the lumberyard, joins the Army, sees action in Korea. He's a career soldier with 20 years of service. It's Memorial Day, and the town is divided over the war. Pop Connor tells Creighton, be an example for the rest of the kids. Go march in the parade, which he does. This weekend in 1966 is the last time his family will see him alive. In a distant land on the other side of the planet, these residents answer the country's call and they serve with distinction. They wear the cloth of the nation. And during that conflict, these 7 died. Yet I suggest to you that they did not die for their country, and they did not die for each other. These New Canaan residents, these 7, lived for them. Fred Andrew Lynn is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Richard Oliver Bickford is buried at West Point. Creighton Conner, David Moy Burke Jr., and Howard Bruce Smith are interred right here in New Canaan at Lakeview Cemetery. The remains of Charles David Austin and the remains of William Brewster Nickerson were never recovered. Their names are inscribed at the Courts of the Missing in Honolulu. What's the purpose of Memorial Day? To honor them, to honor the fallen. Why are we here today? Not because these men died. We're here today because they lived. My final story. 10 years ago, I awoke one morning with a clarity of mind and knowledge I had not possessed before. My 10-year-old brought home the newspaper that she published at West School. For a fill-in-the-blanks article, she writes, when I grow up, I want to be in the Army. At a West Point parade, my cousin asked my 12-year-old where he wanted to go to college. He looked out into the grassy plains where the cadets had just marched, and he said, here. My teenager was wearing my old Army boots. They were her favorite shoes, and she wore them to King's School. She would write her college essay about those boots. All of my children are in the U.S. Army. Our family currently has 8 members on active duty, with generations who have served on both sides of the Atlantic. It may not feel like we're at war, but the armed forces are training, deploying, and fighting at home abroad and often on a moment's notice. I attended 2 military funerals and a unit memorial in the last 9 months. On August 1st, a commercial truck hit Haley Hodgson Stryker, the lead armored vehicle of a convoy in Germany. She was a scout platoon leader with the 2nd Cavalry Regiment. She was 24 years old. 3 months later, on November 10th, 5 crew members, Steve Dwyer, Shane Barnes, Tanner Groan, Andrew Southard, and Cade Wolf of the 160th SOAR, the Special Operations Aviation Regiment, they died in a nighttime exercise in the Mediterranean. They had deployed after the Hamas attacks on Israel. Steve Dwyer was on board the MH-60 Black Hawk tail number 490. Steve Dwyer was on board, and he was 38 years old. He left behind a wife and 3 young boys. Both parents of Haley, both parents of Steve are my friends. Both parents and their children. All 6 of them served in the U.S. Army. What is the purpose of Memorial Day? To honor them, to honor the fallen. Why are we here today? Because of soldiers such as Haley Hodgson and Steve Dwyer. Because they lived. We honor Americans who gave their all from the Revolution through Vietnam and current conflicts. Over 1,300,000 men and women. I ask you to share with your friends and your family and your neighbors and your children the purpose of Memorial Day, to honor the fallen. Please pause for a moment of silence to remember those who once lived and played ball, who practiced lines in the senior play, who helped secure for us the blessings of freedom. And remember why we are here. To say a prayer of gratitude that such men and women lived